So I just wanted to talk a little bit about making the Hall effect sensor for the cam position. The computer needs to know the position of the crank, which I get from the Mark III block. The ABF block has a 60-tooth crank sensor, which is great, except it can't tell whether it's the power stroke or the exhaust stroke, right, because it's a 4-cycle, so it needs to actually have one additional signal, which you can get from the camshaft when they cam, because it spins at half the speed of the crank and ends up with a the additional signal saying this is cylinder number 1 power stroke, or top dead center. So I'm taking the standard Mark II sensor from the 9A head, which is embedded in the base of the old distributor cap, and it's got 4 cutouts to interrupt the field of the Hall effect sensor in here, and it fires or gives a signal 4 times for the 4 spark plugs, and I only want cylinder number 1. The computer calculates everything else from the crank position sensor. So I need to remove this piece here, which is pressed on, so I'm going to just cut in with a die grinder, just cut in and release the pressure and then slip this off. Then I'm going to thread, it's thicker at the base here where it goes into the bearing surface, and then there's a shank, there's a shoulder, and I'm going to thread this top piece so I can put a jam nut and a star washer on it, and then I will cut using this billet piece of metal. I'll just put it on the lathe and I'll make an identical piece to this, except with only 1 cutout rather than the 4. And because of the jam nut, I'll be able to rotate it around and get it into the exact position, and then tighten down the nut and hold it into place. That's what I want. I want the adjustability. At the bottom, this thing is keyed. It's got a little hole here, and that goes into this piece here, which locks into the cam itself, the base of the cam, one of the 2 cams, so the exhaust cam, I think. And so I'm gonna hollow this out and make it look like this, basically. I don't care too much about the top being shrunk down, being shrunk in, but the bottom is going to have this shoulder on it. So there we go. That's before, and then the after will come next. So I'm just using the mill to just cut this little piece off rather than the die grinder. If they're a little bit more cautious, I can ease into it a couple of thou at a time rather than risking nicking the shaft. So I'm ready to knock the top of it off now, and then prepare it for the new piece, which I have to use my lathe and mill this block of stuff into a nice pretty piece. So I cut it a little shorter on the top, and I've threaded it with an M10 by 1.5 thread for a thin nut and maybe a washer, and then I can mount the Hall effect unit to that. So it's ready to go. So here's the results of my machining. Took a bit of time, but I took a slug of steel and cut it down so that this now pops on here. There's a thread and a lock washer and a little half nut I've made. Threads on there, and boom, we now have a nice cam sensor. It's top dead center cylinder number 1 sensor, which is what I need to go along with the 60-2 tooth crank sensor for the ECU. And I got the headlight assemblies completed. So these are done with the new Mark I Auto House headlight adjusters. So it worked out nicely. And this has got the HID Xenon by Xenon H4 adapter bulbs in it, the 40,000 volt bulbs, so a much wider light than the old H4 bulbs. So the halogens are sort of, you know, yellowy white, and I've got a 44,000K. So it's not super bluey white, but it's a nice white light that comes out of these, and about 3 times the brightness. So I know it's not old school stock, but I like to see in the dark. So there you go. And I'm fiddling around with the brake system. Once the engine and transmission are installed, I will be bolting this stuff in. So just getting all the fasteners and everything sorted out. And then those are the new 100mm flange axles, which Josh got sorted out for me. So that's fantastic. And then over here, I've finished installing all the bits and got the front struts dialed up and torqued in and all ready to drop in. So making progress. So the engine's here in the garage with the transmission. I'm just getting ready to figure out what I need to mate them together. And this little rolling 1-inch piece of wood, the plywood, I'm gonna turn that into a stand to support both the engine and the trans, so I can lift this one last time, roll it in, and now I've got the hoist sitting there. I can grab it and pull it up into place and then bolt it in. So I've been working on getting everything torqued in here, so all the little bits. Lots of work to do. This is all final now. So I was having trouble getting this set of injectors at the correct angle. They're really right up against the throttle body, so I've machined the throttle body housings a bit and fucked around, but basically got these in permanently, the right position, and the high mounts are good. Everything else is torqued in. So this fuel pressure regulator is a bit big, but I'm going to bolt it up against a flange that comes off the cold air intake. So these trumpets are going to go inside a box, and this will attach here, and then the lines will run up. I haven't got all the fittings yet, but basically the lines come through a Y connector, split into the 2 rails for the high and low mount injectors, run through, go to the regulator, and then the return line runs back. And then underneath here I will have a plenum, a log, that is going to be for vacuum, so these vacuum ports attach. And then I've got the nitro solenoid, and oh, by the way, there's my nice flange. It's all permanently in there now, so my coolant works. And all this stuff has now been, you know, sealed up and torqued into place, and aligned, so pulleys and everything are ready to go. It's all final. So I'm just working out how to get the clutch, push plate, flywheel and stuff installed, mated to this trans, and roll it in there, bolt it in place. So a little bit of fiddling and learning to do, and haha, should be good.